How Your Mind Tricks You. Don't Believe Everything You Think. Written by James Tracy. Published by Simple Audiobooks. Introduction. Our minds are extraordinary tools, capable of feats that defy human experience, creativity, problem-solving, memory, imagination, and complex reasoning. Yet, for all its capabilities, the mind is also deeply flawed in how it interprets reality. It's not a neutral observer, but an active processor, constantly filtering, categorizing, and making sense of the world based on countless factors: our upbringing, past experiences, cultural influences, fears, desires, and even evolutionary instincts. This means that what we perceive as truth is often a mental construct, heavily influenced by subjective interpretations rather than objective reality. The book begins by diving deeply into this foundational idea, explaining that our thoughts, while seemingly logical and reliable, are frequently riddled with distortions that can lead us astray. At the heart of this distortion is the brain's tendency to rely on shortcuts or cognitive biases, which evolved to help us survive in a world of immediate physical threats. For instance, when faced with a rustle in the bushes, assuming it's a predator rather than the wind gave early humans a survival advantage. However, in the modern world, where many of our challenges are psychological or social, these same mental shortcuts often misfire. The mind tends to exaggerate potential dangers, imagine worst-case scenarios, and cling to outdated patterns of thinking that no longer serve us. These automatic responses are not inherently bad. They're the brain's way of conserving energy and avoiding risk, but they can become problematic when left unchecked. One major way the mind tricks us is through the stories it creates. The human brain is a narrative-making machine, constantly weaving together events, emotions, and thoughts into coherent stories that help us make sense of the world. However, these stories are rarely accurate reflections of reality. Instead, they are colored by personal biases, fears, and insecurities. For example, a single critical comment from a colleague might spiral into a mental narrative that nobody at work respects me, even if the evidence doesn't support that conclusion. Similarly, the mind often revisits past failures or future uncertainties, creating loops of worrying and regret that serve no productive purpose, but feel compelling and real. The introduction explains that these mental distortions are so convincing because they often operate below the level of conscious awareness. Thoughts arise automatically, shaped by neural pathways that have been reinforced over time through repetition and habit. Many of these pathways were formed during childhood or through significant life experiences, meaning that much of our thinking is rooted in outdated or unexamined beliefs. For instance, a person who was criticized frequently as a child may develop a hyperactive inner critic that judges every action harshly, even when there's no external criticism present. This automatic thinking creates a lens through which we view ourselves and the world, a lens that is often distorted, but feels like absolute truth. Another way the mind tricks us is through its fixation on control. Humans have an innate desire to predict and manage outcomes, but the mind's attempts to control the uncontrollable often lead to stress and frustration. The more we try to anticipate every possible outcome or ensure that everything goes according to plan, the more we become trapped in cycles of anxiety and overthinking. The book highlights that much of this need for control stems from the mind's discomfort with uncertainty. Rather than embracing the unknown, the mind tries to fill in the gaps with assumptions, which are often negative or fear-driven. This can lead to self-fulfilling prophecies, where the mind's imagined outcomes influence our actions in ways that bring those outcomes to fruition. The book's introduction also touches on the emotional consequences of these mental tricks. Thoughts are not isolated, they're deeply intertwined with emotions. A single negative thought can trigger a cascade of feelings, such as fear, anger, or sadness, which then reinforce the original thought in a feedback loop. For example, if the thought "I'm not good enough" arises, it might lead to feelings of inadequacy, which in turn make the thought feel more believable, perpetuating the cycle. This loop can keep people stuck in patterns of self-doubt, procrastination, and avoidance, limiting their ability to achieve their goals or experience genuine happiness. Importantly, the introduction makes it clear that the goal is not to silence or suppress thoughts, but to develop a healthier relationship with them. Thoughts are not inherently good or bad. They're simply mental events that come and go. The problem arises when we over-identify with our thoughts, treating them as facts rather than opinions or mental noise. By learning to step back and observe our thoughts with curiosity rather than judgment, we can begin to see through their distortions and make more intentional choices about how to respond. The book encourages readers to approach their minds with a sense of curiosity and compassion, rather than frustration or self-criticism. Recognizing the mind's tricks is not about fixing the mind, but about understanding it more deeply. This understanding opens the door to greater self-awareness and freedom, allowing us to break free from the automatic patterns that keep us stuck. The introduction serves as an invitation to embark on this journey of self-discovery, emphasizing that while the mind's tricks can feel overwhelming, they are not insurmountable. With the right tools and perspectives, it's possible to reclaim agency over our thoughts and create a life that aligns with our true values and aspirations. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Perception. The first chapter explores in intricate detail the fascinating yet deceptive nature of perception, explaining how our experiences of the world are not objective reflections of reality, but subjective reconstructions crafted by the brain. From the moment we open our eyes or hear a sound, the brain begins a highly complex process of collecting, filtering, and interpreting sensory information to form what we perceive as reality. This process, however, is inherently limited by the brain's capacity to handle only a fraction of the immense sensory data bombarding it at any given moment. To cope with this limitation, the brain relies on shortcuts, like filtering out information deemed irrelevant, filling in gaps with assumptions, and prioritizing data that aligns with past experiences or expectations. These shortcuts are helpful in allowing us to navigate the world efficiently, but they also result in a version of reality that is heavily biased and far from complete. For instance, visual perception, the way we see the world, is influenced by what we focus on and how our brains interpret spatial relationships, light, and color. Optical illusions, for example, exploit this system by showing how easily the brain can misinterpret visual data. Similarly, auditory perception is affected by prior expectations, which is why people sometimes hear different things from the same ambiguous sound clip. Beyond the senses, our emotions and mental states also play a significant role in shaping perception. A person experiencing fear may interpret a harmless shadow as a threat, while someone feeling joy may view the same shadow as inconsequential. This shows how perception is intertwined with emotional and psychological factors, further distancing it from objective reality. The chapter also delves deeply into the role of memory in shaping perception, explaining how memories are not static recordings of past events, but dynamic reconstructions that change each time they are recalled. This malleability means that what we remember is often more a reflection of our current mental state and beliefs than an accurate account of what actually happened. For example, a person reflecting on a childhood experience might reinterpret it differently as an adult, influenced by their present understanding and emotions. This reconstructive nature of memory creates a feedback loop, where distorted memories reinforce existing beliefs, which then shape future perceptions. This is why two people who experience the same event can walk away with drastically different interpretations, each convinced of their own version of the truth. The chapter further explains that perception is not only influenced by individual factors, but also by broader cultural and societal norms. Cultural conditioning shapes what we notice, how we interpret it, and what we deem significant. For instance, a gesture or facial expression that conveys friendliness in one culture might be perceived as offensive in another. This cultural lens adds another layer of subjectivity, making perception even more complex and multifaceted. The brain's reliance on cognitive biases, such as confirmation bias. The tendency to seek information that supports pre-existing beliefs also plays a significant role in shaping perception. This bias often leads people to ignore or downplay evidence that contradicts their views, creating an echo chamber where their version of reality becomes increasingly rigid and distorted. A key insight of the chapter is that these distortions in perception are not inherently problematic. They are simply a natural part of how the brain functions. The issue arises when we mistake our perceptions for objective reality, assuming that what we see, hear, or feel is the complete truth. This illusion of certainty can lead to conflicts and misunderstandings as we struggle to reconcile our subjective realities with those of others. For example, in personal relationships, differing perceptions of the same situation can result in arguments, with each person feeling misunderstood or invalidated. On a larger scale, this dynamic can contribute to societal divisions, as groups with differing worldviews interpret the same facts in vastly different ways. By breaking down the mechanics of perception, the chapter encourages readers to question their own mental filters and the assumptions they make about the world. It highlights the importance of humility and open-mindedness, reminding us that our perspective is just one of many possible interpretations. Through examples, the chapter illustrates how adopting this mindset can lead to better understanding, improved communication, and a greater capacity to embrace diverse viewpoints. Ultimately, the chapter serves as a foundation for the rest of the book, laying the groundwork for readers to begin challenging the mental illusions that shape their lives and fostering a deeper awareness of the subjective nature of their experiences. Chapter 2. Cognitive biases and their impact. The second chapter provides an in-depth exploration of cognitive biases, revealing how these deeply ingrained mental shortcuts, designed to simplify complex information and aid in survival, often distort our understanding of reality and lead us astray in decision-making. Cognitive biases are automatic and unconscious tendencies in the brain that influence how we process information, interpret experiences, and make judgments. They are a product of evolution, helping early humans quickly assess threats or opportunities in uncertain environments. However, in today's complex world, these biases frequently result in flawed reasoning, skewed perceptions, and irrational decisions. For example, confirmation bias drives us to seek, interpret, and remember information that aligns with our pre-existing beliefs, while disregarding evidence that challenges them. This can lead to polarized thinking, where individuals or groups reinforce their views without considering alternative perspectives, further entrenching divisions. Similarly, anchoring bias causes us to give disproportionate weight to the first piece of information we encounter, which can distort how we perceive subsequent data and influence everything from negotiations to everyday choices. The chapter delves into the availability heuristic, explaining how the brain prioritizes information that is most easily recalled, often because it is recent, vivid, or emotionally charged. This can lead to overestimations of the likelihood of dramatic but rare events, such as plane crashes or violent crimes, while underestimating more common risks like heart disease or car accidents. Another significant bias discussed is the optimism bias, where individuals tend to overestimate the likelihood of positive outcomes while underestimating risks. This bias, while fostering motivation and resilience, can result in unrealistic expectations, poor financial planning, or a health-related complacency. Hindsight bias, another critical distortion, occurs when people look back at events and perceive them as predictable, even when they were not. This creates a false sense of certainty, leading to overconfidence in one's ability to predict future outcomes. The chapter also examines groupthink, a collective cognitive bias where the desire for harmony within a group suppresses dissenting opinions, leading to poor decisions and a lack of innovation. These biases interact with our emotions, past experiences, and social environments, amplifying their effects and creating feedback loops that reinforce flawed thinking. For instance, Emotional states, like fear or anger, can intensify biases, making us more prone to impulsive or defensive reactions. Cultural norms and societal pressures further shape how biases manifest, influencing group behavior and decision-making. The chapter uses real-world examples to illustrate these concepts, such as financial bubbles fueled by optimism bias, political polarization driven by confirmation bias, or public reactions to sensationalized news shaped by the availability heuristic. It explains how these biases not only affect individuals, but also ripple through organizations, governments, and societies, impacting policies, economic systems, and interpersonal relationships. Importantly, the chapter emphasizes that cognitive biases are not flaws, but adaptive mechanisms the brain uses to cope with the overwhelming complexity of modern life. While they cannot be entirely eliminated, recognizing their presence is the first step toward mitigating their negative effects. The chapter encourages readers to cultivate self-awareness, slow down their decision-making processes, and critically evaluate their assumptions. It suggests practical strategies, such as seeking out diverse perspectives, challenging one's initial reactions, and relying on evidence-based reasoning to counteract biases. For example, intentionally exposing oneself to opposing viewpoints can help reduce the grip of confirmation bias, while taking time to analyze decisions can diminish the influence of anchoring or availability biases. The chapter also highlights the importance of fostering a mindset of curiosity and humility. By acknowledging the limits of our knowledge and the influence of biases, we can approach complex problems and interpersonal conflicts with greater openness and flexibility. This mindset not only enhances personal decision-making, but also strengthens relationships, as it enables individuals to navigate disagreements with empathy and understanding. The chapter concludes by stressing that while cognitive biases are inevitable, their impact can be managed through intentional effort, critical thinking, and a commitment to learning. By doing so, readers are empowered to make more informed decisions, break free from unproductive thought patterns, and cultivate a clearer, more balanced perspective on the world. Chapter 3: The Role of Fear and Anxiety. The third chapter examines the intricate and multifaceted ways fear and anxiety shape our thoughts, behaviors, and perceptions, emphasizing their origins, psychological effects, and the profound influence they exert on every aspect of human life. Fear is introduced as an evolutionary survival mechanism designed to respond to immediate physical threats by activating the brain's fight, flight, or freeze system, ensuring quick reactions to danger. This instinct, hardwired into the amygdala, allowed our ancestors to survive in environments filled with predators and other hazards. Anxiety, on the other hand, is described as a forward-thinking adaptation of fear, where the brain anticipates potential threats in the future, preparing the individual for challenges that may never materialize. While both emotions are rooted in our biology and have protective purposes, the chapter explains how, in modern life, they are often triggered unnecessarily by abstract or psychological concerns like the fear of failure, social rejection, or uncertainty, leading to mental and emotional turmoil. The chapter explains that when fear or anxiety takes hold, the brain enters a hypervigilant state, narrowing focus and prioritizing threats, whether real or perceived. This heightened awareness distorts reality, amplifying risks and diminishing the ability to think logically or see situations objectively. For instance, someone gripped by the fear of public speaking might magnify minor mistakes into catastrophic failures, assuming the audience is judging them harshly, even when evidence suggests otherwise. Anxiety further compounds this effect by encouraging a loop of negative anticipation, where the mind fixates on worst-case scenarios, constantly imagining outcomes that reinforce the original fear. This anticipatory fear often manifests as catastrophizing, a cognitive bias where individuals envision disastrous results that are unlikely to occur. For example, someone might believe they will lose their job because of one small error, ignoring their otherwise strong performance. The chapter explores how fear and anxiety bias decision-making, leading to avoidance, procrastination, or overly cautious behavior. It highlights how people may shy away from opportunities for growth or success because of fear, perpetuating a cycle of inaction and self-doubt. For example, fear of failure might prevent someone from applying for a promotion, convincing themselves they are unqualified despite evidence to the contrary. This avoidance often results in regret and reinforces feelings of inadequacy. The text also dives into how fear and anxiety shape social behaviors, such as conformity, where individuals suppress their own ideas or opinions to avoid conflict or judgment. The fear of rejection, deeply rooted in human psychology due to our evolutionary need for social bonds, can stifle authenticity and creativity, leading people to act against their true desires or values. On a broader scale, the chapter examines how fear spreads through groups and societies, creating collective anxieties that influence public behavior and policy. This social contagion of fear is often exacerbated by media, which amplifies threats through sensationalist reporting, causing widespread panic or irrational reactions. For instance, exaggerated reports of crime can lead to heightened anxiety about personal safety, prompting unnecessary measures like avoiding public spaces or over-investing in security systems. Similarly, economic fears, such as a recession, can lead to panic buying or hoarding behaviors, which in turn exacerbate the very issues people fear. This ripple effect shows how fear, though individual in origin, has far-reaching consequences that can shape cultures and communities. The chapter also explores the physiological effects of prolonged fear and anxiety, noting how chronic activation of the stress response impacts the body and mind. Long-term anxiety can lead to elevated levels of cortisol, which weaken the immune system, disrupt sleep, and impair memory and learning. This physical toll creates a feedback loop, where the body's stress responses reinforce negative thought patterns, making it harder to break free from the grip of anxiety. The narrative also touches on how fear and anxiety influence memory, with the brain prioritizing fear-associated memories as a survival mechanism. While this can be helpful at avoiding genuine dangers, it often leads to a disproportionate focus on past failures or traumas, overshadowing positive experiences and fostering a negative worldview. The chapter provides vivid examples of fear-driven behaviors, such as how fear of failure in school or work can cause people to overwork themselves, sacrificing health and well-being in pursuit of success. Similarly, it illustrates how social anxiety can make people hyper-aware of their actions in group settings, leading them to withdraw or second-guess themselves, even in supportive environments. Another example is the fear of uncertainty, which drives individuals to cling to familiar routines or rigid beliefs, limiting their potential for growth and exploration. Despite this, the chapter stresses that fear and anxiety are not inherently negative. They are signals meant to draw attention to potential problems or areas of personal growth. When acknowledged and managed, these emotions can be transformed into sources of motivation and resilience. Practical strategies are offered to help readers navigate these emotions effectively, such as mindfulness techniques that encourage observing thoughts without judgment, reducing the intensity of fear-driven reactions. Another approach discussed is cognitive reframing, where individuals challenge exaggerated fears and replace them with balanced, constructive interpretations. For example, instead of thinking, "I'll fail and embarrass myself," one might shift to, "I might face challenges, but I'll learn and improve through the process." The chapter emphasizes the importance of gradual exposure to fear-inducing situations, a technique proven to reduce anxiety over time by building confidence and familiarity. By taking small, deliberate steps, such as speaking up in a small meeting before addressing a larger audience, individuals can reshape their relationship with fear and expand their comfort zones. It also highlights the role of supportive environments in mitigating fear, encouraging readers to seek out mentors, friends, or communities that foster trust and understanding. The chapter concludes with a hopeful message, inviting readers to see fear and anxiety not as barriers, but as opportunities to learn, adapt, and grow. By embracing these emotions with curiosity and courage, they can lead to greater self-awareness, resilience, and the confidence to face life's uncertainties with clarity and strength. Chapter 4. The stories we tell ourselves. Chapter 4 explores the intricate and often subconscious process by which we construct stories in our minds. Stories that fundamentally influence how we view ourselves, our experiences, and our future. These internal narratives are shaped by a complex interplay of personal history, societal conditioning, cultural norms, family dynamics, and individual perceptions, and they serve as a way for the mind to make sense of the overwhelming amount of information and events that happen around us. Humans have a natural tendency to form stories as a way of organizing reality, providing a coherent structure to the often chaotic and fragmented nature of life. However, not all stories are accurate or helpful. Many are distorted by biases, past traumas, and unchallenged assumptions that can have a profound impact on behavior, emotions, and mental well-being. One key point the chapter makes is that these stories are not necessarily reflective of objective reality, but are rather subjective interpretations that we believe to be true based on our experiences and beliefs. For instance, the chapter explains how someone who has faced several job rejections might develop a story about themselves as being unqualified or incapable, despite their skills or qualifications not truly reflecting these limitations. In this scenario, the story becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The individual continues to tell themselves that they are unworthy, and as a result, they may avoid applying for new opportunities or engage in behaviors that undermine their confidence and chances for success. This internal narrative, although based on past experiences, continues to influence the person's perceptions and decisions, even when circumstances have changed or new opportunities arise. The chapter emphasizes that our minds often cling to these stories because they offer a sense of comfort and predictability, even if they are negative or unhelpful. For example, holding on to a story of being unlovable or destined for failure can feel safer than confronting the uncertainty of trying to change or stepping outside the familiar patterns of thought. The text goes further to illustrate how these stories are reinforced over time through cognitive biases, such as confirmation bias, where people actively seek out information that supports their existing beliefs while disregarding evidence that contradicts them. This bias ensures that our stories remain consistent, making it harder for us to break free from limiting narratives. The chapter uses the example of someone who has faced multiple failed relationships and starts to believe that they are incapable of maintaining a healthy partnership. This individual may then unconsciously interpret any minor disagreement or misunderstanding in a relationship as further proof of their unworthiness, even though these issues are not inherently indicative of failure. In this way, the person's negative self-story perpetuates itself, creating a cycle that becomes increasingly difficult to escape. The chapter argues that these stories often go unchallenged because they feel true on an emotional level, regardless of the logical or factual inaccuracies present within them. Additionally, the chapter discusses the role of cultural and societal influences in shaping the stories we tell ourselves. Society often imposes certain ideals, expectations, and standards about success, beauty, relationships, and happiness, which can deeply impact how we construct our personal narratives. For example, cultural narratives around success often emphasize external achievements, such as wealth, career status, and appearance, leading individuals to internalize these as markers of self-worth. If a person fails to meet these externally defined measures of success, they may create a story of themselves as inadequate or unsuccessful, even though their worth as a person is not tied to these external markers. Similarly, societal pressures around gender roles, beauty standards, and family expectations can lead to stories that suppress authenticity or personal desires, leading to a disconnect between who we truly are and the person we feel we should be. The chapter stresses that these stories are often passed down from one generation to the next, making them seem natural or inevitable. But they are not inherently true or fixed. The impact of these internalized stories can be profound, affecting not only personal identity, but also the quality of our relationships and mental health. When we believe the negative stories we tell ourselves, we may withdraw from opportunities or sabotage relationships, convinced that we are unworthy or doomed to repeat past mistakes. For example, someone who believes they are unlovable because of past rejection to push people away or avoid forming close connections, fearing that any potential relationship will inevitably end in failure. Similarly, individuals who internalize the narrative that they are bad with money may make poor financial decisions, not because they lack the ability to manage finances, but because they have absorbed this limiting story and act in accordance with it. These stories can also fuel feelings of anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem, as they create a disempowered sense of self that sees no possibility for change or improvement. One of the chapter's key messages is the importance of becoming aware of these stories and recognizing how they influence our perceptions and behaviors. It suggests that by examining the stories we tell ourselves, we can begin to identify the ways in which they are limiting or untrue. The chapter offers practical tools for challenging these narratives, starting with mindfulness and self-reflection. By becoming aware of the thoughts and beliefs that arise automatically, we can begin to distinguish between the stories that serve us and those that hold us back. Journaling is suggested as a way to externalize these internal narratives, allowing individuals to examine them more objectively and with a sense of distance. Talking to trusted friends or mentors can also help to gain an outside perspective on the validity of our stories, as others may see patterns or strengths that we are blind to because of our self-imposed limitations. Rewriting these stories is portrayed as a transformative process, one that involves consciously choosing a new narrative that is more aligned with our true selves and our aspirations. The chapter suggests shifting from a story of "I am a failure" to "I have faced setbacks, but I am capable of growth and learning." It encourages readers to adopt stories of resilience, empowerment, and possibility, recognizing that past experiences do not define future outcomes. The text discusses how small changes in self-talk and perspective can accumulate over time, leading to significant shifts in mindset and behavior. The chapter also stresses that the process of rewriting our stories is not about denying past pain or challenges, but rather reframing them in a way that emphasizes strength, growth, and the potential for future success. The chapter closes by reinforcing the idea that our stories are not fixed truths, but are fluid, evolving narratives that can be changed at any time. It calls for a conscious effort to rewrite these stories, to create narratives that reflect our values, strengths, and capacity for growth. By doing so, we can reclaim our personal power, foster a deeper sense of self-worth, and open ourselves up to new possibilities that were previously obscured by limiting beliefs. The message is ultimately one of empowerment, encouraging readers to take ownership of their inner narratives and shape a story that is more fulfilling, authentic, and aligned with who they truly want to be. Chapter 5. Breaking Free from Mental Traps. Chapter 5 goes deeply into understanding mental traps, which are recurring cognitive patterns or thought distortions that can prevent individuals from thinking clearly, acting effectively, and feeling emotionally balanced. These mental traps often develop from prolonged exposure to stress, fear, or negative life experiences, and they essentially lock the person into fixed, irrational ways of thinking that distort their reality. These traps arise from the mind's automatic response to uncomfortable emotions, like anxiety, frustration, or sadness, which leads it to take shortcuts in reasoning, creating mental distortions that provide a false sense of certainty or safety. For example, the mind might overgeneralize a single negative event, creating a narrative that all future outcomes will follow the same path, or it might engage in black and white thinking, where only extreme outcomes are considered, and the nuances of the situation are ignored. This way of thinking severely limits perspective and robs individuals of the ability to navigate situations with an open mind. The chapter provides a detailed breakdown of different types of mental traps, highlighting common ones such as all or nothing thinking, catastrophizing, overgeneralization, filtering, and personalization. These traps often reinforce each other, creating a snowball effect where one distorted thought leads to another, ultimately creating a distorted and limiting view of reality. One key example the chapter discusses is catastrophizing, which occurs when a person blows things out of proportion, expecting the worst-case scenario in every situation. Someone who is prone to catastrophizing might have a minor argument with a friend and instantly think that the relationship is doomed, or that they will be abandoned, even though there is no evidence to support this outcome. This thought pattern causes immense anxiety and paralyzes the individual from taking any action to improve the situation, often making them avoid confrontation or fail to resolve the issue. Similarly, all or nothing thinking forces individuals to see things in extremes, believing that they must either be perfect or are a failure, without any middle ground. This can lead to excessive pressure on oneself, causing people to avoid tasks or opportunities because they fear not achieving perfection. Over time, these mental traps limit the person's ability to handle challenges, diminish their self-esteem, and restrict personal growth by creating an environment where only ideal outcomes are seen as acceptable. Another common mental trap explored in the chapter is personalization, where individuals take things personally, assuming that others' actions or behaviors are a direct reflection of their worth. For example, someone might assume that a colleague's lack of acknowledgement is a personal slight, leading them to feel rejected or unimportant, when in fact the colleague might simply be distracted or preoccupied with their own tasks. The chapter also elaborates on how mental traps create a feedback loop that keeps individuals stuck in negative emotional states. These distorted thinking patterns fuel anxiety, stress, and depression as the person begins to ruminate on their perceived failures or the impossibility of success. For example, someone who engages in overgeneralization can experience a minor failure and immediately conclude that they are not good enough or that they will always fail, leading to feelings of hopelessness. This can cause them to withdraw from future attempts, reinforcing the mental trap and the cycle of self-doubt. The more the person believes in these distorted narratives, the more they confirm them through their behavior, creating a vicious cycle that's difficult to break. The chapter also emphasizes that these mental traps don't just affect individuals in isolation, they also influence relationships and social interactions. People who fall into these traps may project their distorted thinking onto others, misinterpreting innocent actions as hostile or dismissive. They may struggle to engage in healthy communication or problem solving because they are too focused on their perceived victimhood or their fear of failure. As a result, the mental traps contribute to misunderstandings, conflicts, and isolation, further perpetuating negative thinking and emotional distress. The text encourages readers to recognize these mental traps by developing self-awareness and mindfulness, which involves observing one's thoughts without judgment and becoming conscious of the automatic patterns that arise. The chapter stresses that awareness is the first step in breaking free from these traps. Once individuals can identify the distorted thinking, they can begin to challenge and reframe those thoughts. One approach discussed in the chapter is cognitive reframing, where individuals learn to reinterpret situations in a more balanced, realistic light. For example, instead of believing that a minor setback means they will never succeed, a person can reframe it as an opportunity to learn and grow. By consciously shifting from negative to more positive or neutral interpretations, individuals can weaken the power of the mental trap. The chapter also introduces several practical techniques for breaking free from mental traps, including mindfulness practices, journaling, and seeking alternative perspectives. Mindfulness helps individuals develop a calm, centered awareness that allows them to detach from their thoughts, observe them as temporary, and recognize that they are not inherently true or definitive. The act of journaling is particularly useful in externalizing thoughts and gaining clarity by writing down distorted thoughts. Individuals can examine them more objectively, questioning their validity and looking for evidence that contradicts them. Seeking alternative perspectives, whether from trusted friends, therapists, or mentors, is another technique for breaking free from mental traps, as others can often point out when our thinking is irrational or limiting. The chapter further emphasizes the importance of self-compassion and patience in overcoming mental traps, explaining that breaking free from these patterns is not instantaneous. Changing deeply ingrained thought habits takes time and consistent effort, and individuals must be gentle with themselves when they slip back into old patterns. It suggests that people practice forgiveness toward themselves for having fallen into mental traps, acknowledging that everyone is susceptible to negative thinking at times. Through practice, individuals can build a healthier mental landscape, one in which they are more resilient in the face of challenges, able to recognize when they are falling into a mental trap, and capable of redirecting their thoughts toward more empowering beliefs. The chapter also highlights the need for a shift in perspective, from seeing oneself as a passive victim of thoughts to becoming an active agent in choosing one's mental responses. By taking control of the way they think, individuals can break the chains of mental traps and begin to create new, healthier patterns of thinking that better serve their goals, happiness, and emotional well-being. The chapter concludes by reiterating that mental traps are not a permanent part of who we are. They are learned patterns that can be unlearned. It emphasizes that the human mind is incredibly adaptable, and through consistent effort and self-awareness, individuals can develop the skills to challenge and change these traps. It encourages a mindset of curiosity and growth, where individuals see mental traps not as insurmountable obstacles, but as opportunities for self-improvement. By freeing themselves from these mental traps, individuals can experience greater emotional freedom, better decision-making, and a more fulfilling life overall. Chapter 6: Mindfulness and Clarity. Chapter 6 delves deeply into mindfulness, positioning it as a foundational practice that offers a powerful antidote to the overwhelming mental noise that many individuals face daily. Mindfulness is not just about meditation in isolated moments, but about cultivating a consistent, sustained awareness that can be applied throughout all aspects of life. This practice is rooted in the idea of being fully present in each moment, observing without judgment, and recognizing thoughts and feelings as they arise, rather than reacting to thoughts and emotions in an automatic, conditioned way. Mindfulness allows individuals to take a step back and gain insight into the nature of their mental processes. This mental space gives people the ability to observe their inner experience with detachment, allowing them to understand that their thoughts do not necessarily define them or dictate their actions. In this way, mindfulness creates clarity by enabling individuals to see situations more objectively, without being clouded by negative thought patterns, distorted perceptions, or emotional overreactions. The chapter stresses that, through mindfulness, people can build a powerful sense of awareness that helps them break free from mental traps. These traps, such as catastrophizing, all-or-nothing thinking, and rumination, often stem from an unconscious, reactive approach to life, where people are swept up by their automatic thoughts and emotional reactions. Mindfulness helps to reverse this by encouraging individuals to slow down and observe their mental landscape without judgment. As they become more aware of these patterns, they can begin to identify when they are falling into mental traps and choose to respond differently. Instead of immediately reacting with fear, anger, or frustration, they can take a pause, observe the situation with clarity, and choose a response that aligns more with their values and long-term goals. This shift in perspective is powerful, as it enables individuals to move from a place of reactivity to one of intentionality, creating a greater sense of control over their lives. Furthermore, the chapter emphasizes that mindfulness provides a sense of mental freedom by helping individuals detach from the constant barrage of thoughts that often lead to stress and confusion. The human mind is naturally busy, with an ongoing stream of thoughts, many of which are repetitive, distracting, or negative. Mindfulness offers a way to disrupt this cycle, allowing individuals to break free from the tyranny of their thoughts and instead experience each moment with a sense of calm and presence. By observing thoughts without judgment, individuals can reduce the emotional charge associated with them. For instance, instead of feeling overwhelmed by a stressful thought about an upcoming event, mindfulness allows someone to simply notice the thought and recognize that it is just a passing mental event, rather than a fixed reality. This recognition allows individuals to release the attachment to negative thoughts, which in turn reduces their emotional intensity. Another important aspect discussed in the chapter is the impact of mindfulness on emotional regulation. Many people struggle with intense emotions such as anxiety, anger, or sadness, and these emotions can sometimes feel uncontrollable or overwhelming. Mindfulness encourages individuals to experience emotions in their raw form, without suppressing or avoiding them, but also without becoming completely engulfed by them. Through mindfulness, individuals learn to create a space between stimulus, the emotion, and response, the action they take in reaction to the emotion. For example, when feeling anxious, rather than acting on the impulse to escape or avoid the situation, mindfulness provides the tools to acknowledge the anxiety, sit with it, and observe it without judgment. This space allows for a more measured response, one that does not reinforce the cycle of avoidance or reaction that can lead to emotional distress. By becoming more aware of their emotional states and learning not to react impulsively, individuals can begin to experience greater emotional balance and stability. The chapter also highlights how mindfulness can lead to enhanced clarity and decision-making. When individuals are caught up in negative thought patterns or emotional reactivity, their perception of reality can become distorted. They may overreact, misinterpret situations, or make decisions based on fear or impulsiveness. Mindfulness clears the mental fog, allowing individuals to see situations more clearly and with greater perspective. When faced with a difficult decision, mindfulness helps people step back from the immediate emotional reactions and assess the situation from a calm, clear vantage point. This clarity enables better decision-making, because individuals are no longer clouded by distorted thoughts or knee-jerk emotional reactions. They are able to make choices based on a more accurate understanding of the present moment, and this leads to more constructive outcomes. Additionally, the chapter explores how mindfulness improves overall mental well-being by reducing stress and anxiety. In today's fast-paced world, many people feel overwhelmed by external demands and internal pressures. The constant pressure to perform, succeed, and meet expectations can create a sense of inner turmoil and anxiety. Mindfulness offers a way out of this cycle by allowing individuals to experience the present moment fully, rather than being consumed by worries about the past or future. When individuals practice mindfulness, they develop the ability to anchor themselves in the present, which reduces the tendency to overthink or ruminate. Over time, this can lead to a reduction in overall stress levels, as individuals become less reactive to external triggers and internal anxieties. Mindfulness fosters a sense of inner peace by creating a calm, centered awareness that doesn't get swept away by external events or internal mental chatter. The chapter also introduces practical tips for incorporating mindfulness into daily life, emphasizing that it's not just something to practice during meditation, but a mindset that can be carried throughout the day. Simple activities like eating, walking, or talking to someone can be transformed into opportunities for mindfulness. The practice of mindful eating, for instance, involves paying full attention to the taste, texture, and sensation of food, instead of eating mindlessly or distractedly. This act of mindful presence in everyday activities helps individuals maintain a sense of clarity and calm, even in the midst of routine tasks. The chapter encourages individuals to approach life with the same mindfulness they would bring to formal meditation, applying this quality of awareness to every interaction and situation. The text also stresses the role of mindfulness in enhancing self-awareness, which is key to personal growth and transformation. When individuals practice mindfulness, they become more attuned to their inner world thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations. This increased awareness fosters self-discovery, allowing individuals to gain insight into their habitual behaviors and thought patterns. With this greater awareness, people can begin to make conscious choices about how they respond to situations and emotions, rather than relying on automatic, habitual reactions. This leads to personal growth, as individuals become more in tune with their true needs, desires, and values. Mindfulness creates the space for individuals to examine their actions and motivations, leading to a deeper understanding of themselves and their lives. Mindfulness also plays a crucial role in fostering a greater sense of compassion and empathy, both toward oneself and others. By practicing mindfulness, individuals can develop a more accepting, non-judgmental attitude toward themselves, recognizing that they are not defined by their flaws or mistakes. This self-compassion is essential for emotional healing and growth, as it encourages individuals to be gentle with themselves during times of struggle. Similarly, mindfulness enhances empathy toward others, as it encourages individuals to be present and fully engaged during interactions, fostering deeper, more meaningful connections. The chapter emphasizes that by embracing mindfulness, individuals can cultivate a greater sense of compassion for themselves and others, leading to more harmonious relationships and a deeper sense of interconnectedness. Finally, the chapter concludes by reiterating the transformative potential of mindfulness. It's not a quick-fix solution, but rather a lifelong practice that, when consistently applied, can lead to profound shifts in mindset, emotional regulation, and overall well-being. The clarity, calm, and self-awareness that mindfulness cultivates empowers individuals to break free from mental traps, reduce stress, improve relationships, and navigate life's challenges with greater resilience and intentionality. Mindfulness, therefore, serves as a powerful tool for personal transformation, offering a pathway to a more balanced, fulfilling, and peaceful life. Chapter 7. Embracing Uncertainty. Chapter 7 deeply explores the human tendency to seek certainty, outlining how this desire for predictability is ingrained in people's lives, and how it often leads to an overwhelming sense of control and anxiety. From the moment we are born, society encourages us to plan, structure, and prepare, which over time creates a mindset that assumes stability and security are essential for happiness and success. The chapter underscores that the natural world is inherently uncertain, and no matter how much we try to plan or control outcomes, we cannot avoid the unpredictable nature of life. In fact, trying to grasp onto certainty too tightly can actually prevent personal growth, because it limits one's ability to adapt, learn, and change in response to life's challenges. In this sense, uncertainty becomes a double-edged sword. While it may initially provoke fear and discomfort, it is also the key to growth, innovation, and self-discovery. By constantly avoiding or resisting uncertainty, individuals may find themselves stuck in unfulfilling routines, afraid to take risks or pursue new opportunities because they are too focused on achieving perfect outcomes or avoiding failure. The chapter argues that embracing uncertainty is essential for overcoming these limitations. When individuals resist uncertainty, they also resist the possibility of change, which is an inevitable part of life. Instead of seeking rigid certainty, the chapter promotes the idea of cultivating flexibility and adaptability, which allows individuals to approach life with curiosity, courage, and an openness to the unknown. It highlights how many of the greatest breakthroughs in history have happened, not because of a perfect, predictable plan, but because of the willingness to venture into the unknown and embrace the challenges that come with it. Embracing uncertainty means letting go of the false security that comes from trying to control everything and accepting that outcomes are often unpredictable, regardless of how much preparation is done. This acceptance allows individuals to operate in the present moment, free from the weight of constant worrying about what might happen in the future. Further, the chapter emphasizes that uncertainty often triggers fear, which can be paralyzing if not understood or addressed. Fear of the unknown can cause individuals to avoid taking necessary actions or to procrastinate, leading to missed opportunities and a lack of fulfillment. However, rather than avoiding or repressing fear, the chapter suggests that facing it head-on can be incredibly liberating. It explains that fear is a natural response to uncertainty, but it doesn't have to be a barrier. By acknowledging and accepting fear as part of the process, individuals can make more conscious decisions and learn to act despite the discomfort. This shift in mindset allows people to confront uncertainty with more confidence, understanding that the discomfort of uncertainty is temporary and can be managed with the right approach. The chapter stresses that embracing fear and uncertainty is not about being fearless, but about moving forward in the face of fear and seeing it as an opportunity for growth and resilience. The chapter also discusses how the illusion of control often prevents individuals from engaging with uncertainty. When people believe they have complete control over their circumstances, they set themselves up for disappointment and frustration because life is inherently unpredictable. The chapter suggests that while it is natural to want to influence outcomes and control situations, the reality is that many aspects of life are beyond our control. This acceptance of life's inherent uncertainty is not about passivity, but about relinquishing the need for perfect outcomes and being open to the fluidity of life. The chapter highlights that when individuals accept uncertainty, they are able to focus on what they can control, their responses, actions, and attitudes, instead of fixating on things that are beyond their influence. Moreover, the chapter introduces the concept of living with purpose despite uncertainty. It stresses that while uncertainty can create discomfort, it can also act as a catalyst for change. When individuals acknowledge that uncertainty is an unavoidable part of life, they become empowered to act with purpose in the face of it. The chapter challenges the notion that waiting for certainty is the right approach to making decisions. It suggests that, instead of waiting for all the information or the right time, individuals should act with the understanding that uncertainty will always be present to some degree. By choosing to act anyway, people can create momentum and begin to experience new possibilities that they would otherwise have missed by waiting for certainty. The key is in trusting the process and taking small steps forward, rather than feeling paralyzed by the unknown. This chapter also delves into how embracing uncertainty fosters a sense of freedom. In the absence of the constant need for control, individuals can experience life more fully, without the pressure to have everything figured out. When people release the need for certainty, they open themselves up to the richness of life's experiences, even if those experiences are unpredictable or challenging. Uncertainty becomes something that is embraced rather than avoided. The chapter emphasizes that when individuals stop trying to forecast every outcome and instead embrace the unknown, they allow themselves to truly live, making choices with greater ease and less attachment to the results. Additionally, the chapter explores how embracing uncertainty is crucial for building emotional resilience. By regularly engaging with uncertainty, individuals can build the mental and emotional strength to handle future challenges with more ease. Each time a person faces an uncertain situation and moves through it, they build their ability to tolerate discomfort, develop better coping mechanisms, and become more adaptable. Rather than avoiding uncertainty out of fear, the chapter proposes that people can strengthen their resilience by facing it head-on and learning from each experience. The chapter draws attention to how this resilience is not only about managing uncertainty, but also about using it as an opportunity for personal development. The willingness to embrace uncertainty allows individuals to deepen their understanding of themselves and their capacity for growth, both emotionally and mentally. The chapter also touches on the benefits of uncertainty in relationships and social dynamics. It suggests that the fear of uncertainty can often prevent people from forming deeper, more authentic connections. When individuals fear the unknown, they may avoid vulnerability, which is essential for genuine relationships. By embracing the uncertainty that comes with being open, vulnerable, and authentic in relationships, individuals allow themselves to experience richer, more meaningful connections. The chapter illustrates that accepting uncertainty in relationships, such as the unpredictability of how others might respond or behave, can lead to greater emotional intimacy and understanding. It's not about having all the answers, but about allowing the relationship to evolve organically, without the pressure of having control over every aspect of it. Finally, the chapter stresses that embracing uncertainty allows individuals to develop a more expansive worldview. It encourages readers to let go of the need to always know what comes next and instead to cultivate a sense of curiosity about what life holds in store. This shift in perspective transforms uncertainty from something to fear into something to explore. The chapter concludes by reinforcing the idea that uncertainty, when embraced, can be a source of empowerment, providing individuals with the freedom to take risks, live authentically, and approach life with an open heart and mind. It encourages readers to recognize that uncertainty is not something to be avoided, but something to be welcomed as a powerful force for growth and transformation. Conclusion. The conclusion of the book draws together all the concepts explored throughout the text, reinforcing the idea that the mind, despite being a powerful tool, often deceives us in subtle and profound ways. It emphasizes that much of the stress, confusion, and dissatisfaction we experience in life stem from mental traps, such as biases, assumptions, and deeply ingrained patterns of thought that we may not even be aware of. By becoming more conscious of these mental illusions, whether they are the cognitive biases that skew our judgment, the fears and anxieties that paralyze us, or the self-limiting beliefs we've internalized over time, we can begin to unravel the unconscious forces that shape our perceptions and behavior. The conclusion reminds readers that the mind has a tendency to create false narratives about reality, which can lead to unnecessary suffering. Understanding how our thoughts work and recognizing when we are being deceived by them is the first step toward reclaiming control over our lives. The book advocates for a shift from reactive thinking, which is often governed by fear and bias, to a more conscious and intentional way of thinking that allows for greater emotional intelligence and clearer decision-making. The conclusion further highlights the importance of mindfulness in breaking free from the cycles of negative thinking and mental traps. It suggests that by practicing mindfulness, whether through meditation, self-reflection, or simply being present in the moment, individuals can create the space needed to observe their thoughts without becoming consumed by them. This mindful awareness enables a deeper understanding of how our thoughts influence our emotions and behaviors, and it provides the tools necessary to challenge and change unhelpful patterns. Rather than identifying with every thought that arises, the conclusion encourages readers to view their thoughts as transient and separate from their true self. This shift in perspective allows people to experience greater mental clarity, emotional balance, and a stronger sense of inner peace. The book's closing message stresses that achieving emotional well-being is not about suppressing or controlling the mind, but about cultivating awareness, understanding, and acceptance of our mental processes. Another key message in the conclusion is the idea that while we cannot control everything in life, we can control how we respond to it. The book stresses that life is full of uncertainties, and attempting to predict or control every aspect of it can lead to frustration and anxiety. Instead, it advocates for embracing uncertainty and being open to the unknown. By accepting the unpredictability of life, individuals can let go of the need for rigid control and develop a more flexible and adaptive mindset. This adaptability allows for personal growth, as it opens the door to new opportunities and experiences that would otherwise be missed if one were focused solely on trying to manage every detail. The conclusion suggests that by accepting life's inherent uncertainties, we are able to live with greater freedom and openness, unburdened by the pressure to have everything figured out. It encourages readers to develop a mindset of curiosity and resilience, where they approach life's challenges not as threats, but as opportunities for learning and growth. In addition to embracing uncertainty, the conclusion also emphasizes the importance of shifting from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. It suggests that by viewing challenges, failures, and mistakes as opportunities for learning, individuals can transform their experiences of discomfort and adversity into valuable lessons. This shift in mindset allows people to approach life with greater confidence and a sense of agency, knowing that they have the ability to learn and adapt regardless of the outcome. The conclusion encourages readers to stop seeing themselves as victims of their circumstances and instead take responsibility for their thoughts, emotions, and actions. By doing so, they can step into their own power and make conscious choices that align with their values and goals. The conclusion also reinforces the idea that our thoughts are not always accurate reflections of reality. Many of the mental traps we fall into are based on distorted perceptions or false beliefs, such as catastrophizing, overgeneralization, or black and white thinking. These cognitive distortions can cloud our judgment and prevent us from seeing situations clearly. The book concludes by urging readers to question their assumptions and beliefs, especially those that limit their potential or cause unnecessary stress. It encourages individuals to practice critical thinking and self-reflection, to examine their thoughts with curiosity, and to consider alternative perspectives before making decisions or drawing conclusions. This process of questioning and re-evaluating our mental frameworks allows for greater clarity, as it helps uncover the underlying beliefs that may be driving our behavior and emotions. The conclusion also emphasizes the power of self-compassion in overcoming mental traps. It stresses that being kind and patient with oneself is essential for breaking free from negative thought patterns and cultivating a healthy relationship with the mind. Rather than harshly criticizing ourselves for having unhelpful thoughts or emotions, the book advocates for self-acceptance and understanding. By treating ourselves with the same compassion we would offer a friend, we can reduce the shame and guilt that often accompany negative thoughts, making it easier to move forward with a sense of self-worth and confidence. The conclusion suggests that by practicing self-compassion, we can soften the critical inner voice that tends to reinforce mental traps, creating a more nurturing environment for personal growth and healing. Moreover, the conclusion touches on the importance of aligning our thoughts with our values. The book reminds readers that when our thoughts are in harmony with our core values and beliefs, we experience a sense of integrity and purpose that guides our decisions and actions. When we allow our minds to be influenced by external pressures or unexamined beliefs, we often stray from what truly matters to us, leading to feelings of confusion, frustration, or dissatisfaction. The conclusion calls for a conscious effort to identify and live in alignment with one's values, as doing so creates a strong foundation for mental clarity and emotional well-being. It encourages readers to take the time to reflect on what truly matters to them and to make decisions that reflect their authentic selves, rather than being swayed by the opinions or expectations of others. The conclusion also offers a final call to action for readers to continue their journey of self-awareness and growth. It acknowledges that the process of untangling the mind's tricks and breaking free from mental traps is not a one-time event, but a continuous practice. The book encourages readers to remain committed to developing mindfulness, challenging their biases, and embracing uncertainty as they navigate life's complexities. It emphasizes that personal transformation is a lifelong endeavor, and by consistently applying the insights gained from the book, individuals can create lasting change in their thoughts, behaviors, and emotional responses. The conclusion leaves readers with a sense of empowerment, knowing that by understanding how their minds work, they can take control of their mental and emotional experiences, ultimately leading to a more fulfilling and peaceful life. In summary, the conclusion ties together all the core themes of the book, reinforcing the idea that understanding the mind's tricks and embracing uncertainty are key to achieving mental clarity, emotional resilience, and personal growth. It encourages readers to be kind to themselves, question their assumptions, and align their thoughts with their values, while remaining adaptable and open to life's unpredictability. The book closes with an invitation to continue exploring the mind's complexities and to practice mindfulness and self-reflection, empowering readers to create lasting positive change in their lives.